Hola, amigas. I'm Norma, your host here at the Latinas en Libros Book Club, and I am thrilled to introduce to you one of the most iconic authors of our times, Sandra Cisneros, the author of many books, among them The House on Mango Street. We're here today to celebrate the 40th anniversary of this beautiful, timeless book, which has sold millions of copies around the world and has been translated into multiple different languages and is currently being taught across schools in this country and in so many other places. The House on Mango Street is a classic of American literature, and we are so honored to have Sandra here with us today. Amigas, please join me in welcoming Sandra.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Great, thank you. I'm technically challenged, so that's why I have to ask.
You and me both.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. I'm speaking to you from my home, actually from my bedroom in San Miguel de Allende. This is Command Central. It became Command Central during the pandemic, and it's where I work. I moved my desk in here. I used to work on the dining room table, and I said, no, tried to move it to other places of the house. This is where it wants to be. It's a very intimate space. It's the corazón of my house, and it's a good place for us to have a very heart-to-heart talk. Así que muchas gracias a ustedes for inviting me, and Norma for the questions we're going to talk about today. As I said, my life is an open book. I don't avoid talking about any theme, so adelante.
Gracias. Gracias por tu generosidad, Sandra. I'm choking up because I'm so moved and excited to be here. And I know that so many of our amigas and so many of the people who are going to be watching this recording are so excited, and really just your work and what you've done for us, for yourself, and for community is just so impactful and so important. So I wanted to thank you for being here, taking the time to join us in the Amigahood. We have so much to ask you. We have so many questions. And amigas, I want to invite you to drop your questions in the comments at any point, and we will try to make sure we address all the questions. And as you've heard, Sandra is an open book. So now is the time to ask her all the questions that you've been dying to ask. Okay, so let's jump in before our time runs out. So Sandra, you are a literary trailblazer. And I think that for those who are big readers these days, you might have forgotten, or you might not even know what the publishing landscape looked like 40 years ago when this beautiful book was published. Can you tell us a little bit, Sandra? What did it look like? What did it feel like to have The House on Mango Street published and hit bookstores for the first time 40 years ago?
Well, I have to admit that every time I'm in an airport, which is every month, I poke my head into the airport bookstores to see where we as Latinos are represented, if we are at all, because I know what it was like 40 years ago. And 50 years ago when I first started publishing, because remember, I started publishing 10 years before House was published, when I was 21. So, I'm looking at 50 years poking my head in bookstores, and the only Latino names were male writers like Garcia Marquez, Manuel Puig, Borges, the big boom writers, Vargas Llosa, those are the writers you saw, if you saw them. Right. And but if you looked for us, mujeres or U.S. Latinos, that's the difference. There's a big class difference between the writers from Latin America and the writers coming up from the United States with Latino surnames. So, I would look, and you could not find us. If you found us, it was possibly a little magazine, a little university, hard to find magazine. You didn't find us at the bookstores. You didn't find us in the New York Times or LA Times. We couldn't find one another. It was another problem. And it was one of the reasons why I stopped publishing in like little literary journals that would accept my work because I said, I need to find a Zócalo. Where's the Zócalo? I can't find my sisters. Where are they? And that's why Norma Alarcón, back in the day, who I met by chance, she was a grad student at Indiana University in Bloomington. And we met through my then publisher, Arte Público Press, which was at that time called Chicanorriqueña magazine. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was back in the day. We met in the back of a combi because we were on our way to do a reading together at like some university in Illinois, and I just shook her hand. She was a grad student, and Nick Canelos, of course, the editor, was there, and other people I don't remember, but I remember Norma because like I had not met any other Latinas who were writing, and like Norma said, yeah, I like poetry. Oh, I like poetry too. It was like this wonderful discovery. And then, I would introduce her to women I knew in Chicago, like Diana Solis, who were creating art. And then Diana Solis, who's mainly an artist, photographer, and a writer, put us together when there was a forum at the Chicago Cultural Center and she proposed there should be a forum for Latina writers. And it was like, what? What's that? Diana Solis was the one that asked Norma, can we create something so that we can meet each other? Because we're just lost in diaspora and we need a Zócalo. Zócalo is my word. That's what I always have felt we needed a Zócalo, a little plaza to meet one another. So Norma Alarcón, who was like, a graduate student, and Diana Solis and Norma working for her PhD, she wasn't doctora yet. We asked, she put the question out there. Like, what can we do about how, what is the biggest problem? And we said, well, we need someplace to get published because we're not getting published in big magazines. And we need to find each other. That is essentially it. So Norma said, if I create a magazine, and publishing house came later, would you support me? And, magazine that wants to publish us for Latinas? I said, yeah. So that's how I became like advisory board to a little magazine called Third Woman Press. Third Woman Magazine, then Third Woman Press, I have to say. First came the magazine, then the press. And Norma drew us all together. She was our Sor Juana Inés. She was like a brilliant thinker. I can't even understand half the things she says, but I don't know her as academic. I know her as my friend who paints her toenails with me. She's like,
I love that.
Hermano, so she launched us, she pushed me, she believed in me, before I believed in myself. And she started publishing, and the initial issue of Third Woman Press has a photo that you're familiar with from House on Mango Street, where I'm sitting in front of my desk like that. Mm-hmm. She put that on the initial cover. I was the cover girl, and Diana Solis took the photo. So it was like historic moment, little magazine called Third Woman. And she started publishing us and putting us together so we could meet one another. And what you need as an artist is like you need your chosen family, because your own family doesn't know what the hell you're doing. Why are you wasting your time making that art? You should be making some money. Are you sure you went to college to sleep on the floor? I don't understand this, So it was like great to have like Norma be our mother and mother us and shepherd us and introduce us. We were all part of that familia. Cherie Moraga, Gloria Anzaldúa, Ana Castillo, we all published in that magazine. If you go and look at the issues, we were there and we met each other through the pages of that magazine. So it was very important what Norma did to bring us together. And then later, she published one of my first books. I want to say one of my first books. My first book was a chapbook with like 12 pages with a staple in the center, sold for $1. And that again was published by our own community, by Gary Soto as the editor, and Lorna D. Cervantes as the printer with her Mango Press, with their own centavos. So we had our own community who were publishing us. And my very first edition of House came out with a small press with Nick Canelos, who by then had moved from Indiana down to Houston, University of Texas, Houston, and published a press called Arte Público. That's my first edition of House, the early, which, but that's a long history. And I'm just kind of answering as much as I can in a short way so that you understand it, that los que de veras nos apoyaron, the ones who really supported us, were we ourselves, because we weren't even on the back of the bus. We were running behind the bus. New York Times, olvídalo, the New York Publishing House, olvídalo. It was not like when you go into bookstores now at the airport, which is my barometer, a couple of writers with Latinas from the US, like you see now. It was nothing except maybe Garcia Marquez, who was everywhere.
Thank you for that beautiful history. I think it's so important to remember and to be grounded in the reality of the struggles that we have faced and that we continue
to face
and continue.
Because people think it's like all over, but you have to one, support Latino writers. And I love what Nelly Galan has said. Maybe their first book isn't the greatest, but you got to support them because they get better over time. I think my books have gotten better over time. I always like my next book because I feel like it's a trajectory of a lifetime. So we need support. The Black community goes out there and they support the Black writers. The Jewish writers out there, they support each other. We really need to support ourselves because we're never going to have a voice and a presence unless we unify. That's the truth.
That part, Sandra, I completely agree with you. One of the things that I couldn't help but to really take in when you were talking about the landscape of publishing when The House on Mango Street first came out, it's actually, there were two big takeaways for me. One, the importance of community and the theme that community has played in your life, in your writing, and in sort of the literary world. And, the reality that we still face, that these publishing struggles that many of us have experienced and that really sort of set the tone for much of the publishing landscape about what we read, about what we can hold in our hands remains true. But I want to, for the sake of this conversation, I really want to focus on, I want to ask you a question about community. And I know that you referenced a number of your community comadres and colleagues. And I'm wondering, sort of in the introduction, so in 2008, you wrote an introduction to House on Mango Street, and you talk about how you didn't know exactly where you got the idea to live like a writer, since at the time you were writing, you didn't know about Rosario Castellanos or Sor Juana Inés or Virginia Woolf or Gloria Anzaldúa or Moraga or all these other brilliant minds that you would then later be in community with. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you found the courage to build your creative life and maybe how community affected that?
The writers that influenced me, of course, there are some writers I got through the canon, like Emily Dickinson, but she was disparaged when I was taught her as an undergraduate. She was looked at a spinster kook as how she was characterized. And, she's very meaningful to me. So I love all the revision that has happened in my lifetime, especially Lives Like Loaded Guns, that biography. I just love all of the recent revision of the life of Emily Dickinson, because, we're all Emily Dickinson if we're writing in secret and throwing our poems under the bed. We're all ahead of our times if we're feeling like our stuff is too dangerous to publish in our lifetime. That's what we should be writing, from that place of it's too dangerous for me to say these things. That was liberating for me when I read that. Wow, the lady was being chingona. She was not a kook. She was just ahead of her time. And I felt like, when I was at the university as an undergraduate and even as graduate student, that a lot of the writers that I love now came to me by way of the side doors, the footnotes, the person in class saying, "Have you read Juan Rulfo?" "Oh, no, I haven't read Juan Rulfo." "Oh, I'm going to read Juan Rulfo." And then I would find, the gay writers, "Did you know Manuel Puig has all these footnotes in his novel?" "Oh, maybe I can put footnotes in my novel," So they gave me permiso and I opened up. But the women came a little bit later when I met Norma Alarcón. She opened up a community of women who opened up a community of writers. I think the most pivotal moment in graduate school was when I went to the student union to see a movie about this guy named Malcolm X. who was this Malcolm X guy? You know, I kind of remember him being vilified in the Chicago Tribune and the Sun Times, but I didn't ever hear about him in my writing classes. And my friend, un gringuito friend from Peoria, Illinois, my close friend, Dennis Mathis, said, let's go see this movie. I was like, oh, well, who is he? Oh, okay. I'm like in my second year of graduate school. I don't know anything. I'm not real artsy fartsy inocente. And me arranca this reading this film at the Union. I'm sitting there, I'm going, what? And then I go to the book, and the book just like, you know, I just, it was like my favorite book. One day I came home drunk and I found my contact lenses in like, I had squeezed them so tight, I broke them into 4 pieces. And the introduction to that autobiography of Malcolm X was torn out. I must have come home muy apasionada y borracha. The next day I thought, I think I need to drink less.
Oh,
because it was just like, I just love that book so much.
yeah.
And what it did for me was it opened up a kind of consciousness raising. And I taught that book when I went from Iowa City to the barrio in Chicago, and I was teaching remedial readers, autobiography of Malcolm X, my favorite book. And what I did when I was writing A House on Mungo Street is like, I love the idea of like Malcolm Little changing himself to Malcolm X. Ooh, character, she wants to change her name too. She wants to be Zizi, the X. So that's why that's there. That's from Malcolm. Just a little footnote for you reading House on Mungo Street, that the author is going through life changes, because think about your life from 21 to 28. That's major.
Major.
And I was like inheriting things that my parents and my culture and my religion and the patriarchy told me that was good for me, and questioning that through this little character who, like, with my voice, because I felt silence during that decade, and she was like, that way, no, that way, that lady's locked in her house, no, you know. I was looking at my mother's marriage, I was looking at the neighbors, I was questioning what my father wanted through a vehicle that allowed me to uncensor myself, a younger voice, because the person Sandra during the 20s was very guilt-ridden, very ashamed of herself, very viviendo con vergüenza, la verdad. And when you live with vergüenza, you cannot face yourself. You are drunk because you do not want to spend time alone. You're doing careless sex. You're doing dancing on tables to olvidarte of facing the most terrifying being, you. And that's what I did in my 20s. I was trying to just self-immolate because I hated the person I was. And the only way I could get a voice and speak was by taking a younger, more innocent me and the border between childhood and adolescence. And she could say things that I felt I could not talk about what I was living in my 20s. It was really hard time. I made some really bad mistakes, but I have gratitude that I survived my disasters. And because that's what it's all about. You know, we have to survive our exploding cigars. We have to get up, look at ourselves and say, okay, you really fucked up here. How do I get back on track? And that's what the 20s is. That's why I tell women, people are here in the 20s and they're like, I said, you know, don't worry, it only lasts 10 years.
20, maybe into your 30s sometimes.
I think the 30s has its own trauma. The 30s has its own trauma because we have to go through a death and rebirth in the crisis. When you're in 33, you are shedding your past and being reborn and reinventing yourself. And some people don't make it. You know, I went through a near death year in my 33rd year because I felt I was measuring myself by other people. And I wasn't making any money. House was being published by small press. I got $500 every time they did a run of 3,000 books. You know, $500 didn't go much. And we're talking about like 1984 when my book was published. And so that wasn't a lot of money. And I felt like a failure because I felt the only thing I know how to do is put words together. And what good is that when payday comes, you know, and I don't have any money. I don't have a car. I don't have health insurance. I'm 33 years old. Other people, I have 2 degrees and I don't know how to do anything. And worst of all, I have to borrow money from my father and mother. My father's an upholsterer. You know how shameful it is to have to borrow money from your working class parents after you went to college and got 2 degrees. I was so ashamed, and I felt I had nothing to offer. I was not I couldn't take care of myself, and I thought, and the pain of knowing that I was a failure, even though I could put words and string them together, but what good was that? It wasn't valued. What good was literature? And I was a writer of something that que no servía. But I didn't realize I'd written House from a place of absolute love. And when we work like that with your face in the dust, on absolute powerlessness, I really believe that it opens your heart to a state of grace. And I'm going to say grace. Don't worry about what the nuns told you. I'm talking about a purity of opening that intuitive channel. Because you have nothing to lose. Your ego's gone.
That's right.
Dust in the dirt. Your face is in the polvo. It opened me when I was writing House to just write from puro amor y amor puro for my students with no self-gain, no thought of where it was going to take me, because I couldn't hold that pain. I couldn't hold that pain anymore. And I knew if I hold it, it will make me sick. So I wrote with no ego. And that's where this writing comes from. That's where the highest work we do. And I'm going to repeat this every time I speak. Whatever you do, con puro amor y amor puro, with pure love, on behalf of those you love, with no agenda, with no ego, that light comes through you, not from you. From wherever higher self, through you, siempre sale bonito. So I'm going to repeat that. Whatever you create with love, on behalf of those you love, with no personal agenda, siempre, 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 te lo puedo jurar, law of the universe, siempre sale bonito. And it may not be that you will see it right away, because I planted semillas that I am lucky that I didn't die in my 33rd year, that I got to see the harvest de lo que hice con puro amor. I saw, and I'm seeing this book do its little spirit work all over the world. It's doing its spirit work. ¿Por qué? Porque lo hice con puro amor y amor puro. And that's the most powerful thing we have. But you have to get your ego out of the way. You have to get your fear out of the way. You have to get your envidia out of the way. You have to get your wounds out of the way. If you don't do that self-healing, this channel goes like this. Writers that are scared or want to win a prize, they're closing this all the time. Writers that are filled with hate, they're closing that channel. Anybody that's coming from the dark place, if you have a practice of getting your ego out of the way, get out of the way. Get your fear out of the way. Get your envidia out of the way. Get your negativity. Get your demons. Expel those demons. This opens. That's why when we make like altars for the Days of the Dead, we're so open to the spirits visiting us, because we're working con puro amor. We're not trying to win a prize with our altar. Well, maybe some people are, but I'm not. If you get out of the way and work from puro amor y amor puro, and te lo juro, you may not see it in your lifetime, but you are planting seeds of peace, which is very important, right now, to think about like the wars and things that are going on. Am I sending vitriol out there on social media? Am I creating more oil on the fire by picking a side? Can I be brave enough to not pick a side and say, let's work at a solution con puro amor? Because like just picking a side is already inflaming the situation. I have to be very careful, especially those of us who work with words, which is everybody, to not plant seeds of hate, of divisiveness, of rage. And how do we do that? We have to look at the grand masters that can teach us that. And to me, that's Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh, we are more than our sorrows. That, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm always looking at the darkness. I forgot to look at the sky. Or I've got to get a love transfusion from my child, or from my dog, or from my cat, or from my favorite plant, or my tree, or I'm going to sit under that favorite tree until I let go all my sorrows. I'm going to transform all my darkness to light. And do I do that in 15 minutes in the morning? Or do I turn on the news? do I do that 15 minutes before I go to bed? Which is really important because we're doing dream work. We're opening our channel when we're asleep to problem solving. Or am I watching Forensic Files? You know, I don't want to see dead body parts before I go to sleep.
No, I don't either. I don't either. I want to stay in the place of love.
I don't want to see that before I go to sleep because I need to be in some very safe space so I can unreel that papalote, that kite that is my spirit, so it can voyage at night. And in the morning, I'll have some solutions to all the dilemmas, you know, and we're caring a lot, all of us here who are community activists, leaders, teachers, mothers, we're caring a lot. We have to do that spirit work, and we can't do that if we don't recharge.
I love that. Thank you for reminding all of us that we need to stay in a place of love and openness in order for us to be able to plant seeds that will grow into gorgeous papalotes of change, of love. You know, I think it's so important, whether you're a writer, whether you're an entrepreneur, however you choose to identify. I think that your words are absolutely spot on. And I
learned so much, Norma, when I had lost a friend in communication with a friend during the Bosnian War, because I lived in Sarajevo. One of the things I got after I finished House on Mungo Street was like money to travel, and I wound up living in former Yugoslavia. So when the Bosnian War started in the 90s, it really created an activism in me that was very different from who I used to be. And you know, there's like before the Bosnian War, and there's me after. And I believe that Thich Nhat Hanh, you know, he got kicked out of North and South Vietnam because he was a peace activist. So he taught us, you know, to create peace. We have to be peace. That's hard. To hold up a sign, we got to be peace. That means we got to not fight with our mother. No, hombre, that is like really hard. You know, don't fight with your neighbor, your partner, their kids. I have a brother who pushes all my buttons. I have an employee that pushes all my buttons, but I told him, you know, because of the war that's happening right now, I'm not going to yell. I'm going to hold on to my words and talk to you when I calm down. And then I will communicate the Marshall Rosenberg model of peaceful negotiation. I say, Ernesto, ¿te has fijado que no he gritado mucho tiempo? No, no me he fijado. Pues ese es para mí, es por la paz, porque quiero ser la paz.
I love it.
You know, and we have to do our peace effort in every way, every word we put out there, especially if we're word warriors, because we could be a Molotov mouth. And I know those writers, but that's because they're wounded and they're holding all this pain that they haven't cleansed. Y pobrecitos infelices, literally, pobrecitos.
Yeah. I think it's so important, especially these days, for the reminders to be peace, to be love, to be light, and to allow that light, to allow that peace to come in and to impact the kind of work that we do. I think one of the things that I find so fascinating, and I was reminded in doing my research for today, but also in reading this new edition that came out and actually revisiting this edition also, I'm reminded that you have lived such a diverse, and you have done such a diverse life, and you have done so many powerful contributions and given society, community, so many beautiful gifts. And I'm wondering if we can bring it back to the introduction that you wrote in 2008. You talk about the tension between what your father wanted for your life, which was, if we could say, a more quote unquote traditional life, and your own dreams, your own aspirations, some of which included having your own casita, being a writer, being a creative. Can you tell us, and I think that a lot of us in community experience this intergenerational tension between who we want to be and our dreams and what we've seen and what we want to create, and perhaps the wounds, the scarcity mindset, the dreams of a different generation. Will you tell us a little bit more about this tension for you and how it unfolded?
Yeah, and Norma, first I have to say, I was my father's favorite child of 7 kids. I'm an only daughter and the favorite child. And I really believe that for us to be a success, fathers, listen, you have to love your daughters unconditionally, because if you love your daughters unconditionally, you will launch them far, and it will give them core strength. A core strength. I personally have interviewed lots of chingonas, and I've always suspected and gotten a confirmation that they were their father's favorite child. It gives you some superpower.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it just does. So you can imagine my father's heartbreak when he would saw me, coming into Chicago. I remember once I came into Chicago with so little money that I couldn't rent one of those carts. I didn't have enough money to get the cart out. This was when the cart was $3. I didn't have enough coins to rent a cart because I had so many bags, and my father, as usual, sent one of the six brothers to pick me up. But my six brothers, as usual, didn't want to park the car. So they went round and around, round and around.
Hurry up.
Angrier at O'Hare. You know how big O'Hare is. And I couldn't get to the curb because I had so much crap I was dragging, as usual. And I got so angry at my brother and exploded, and he exploded. I don't know how I got to the curb, and I don't just remember that part. I can't forget the angry words that flew between us. An hour, and I was really angry about other things. Usually that's what it is. You're unloading anger at your life, anger that you have less than $3 in your pocket, anger that you're ashamed that you have less, whatever it was. I remember by the time I came to my father and got to my little cottage on, the west side of Chicago, I was in tears. And my father reminded me years later, remember when you came and you didn't have enough money for that carrito? I said, yes. That's why my father wanted me to marry, because he thought this fool cannot take care of herself. She's got to find somebody who can take care of her because she doesn't know how to do it. She's sleeping on the floor. She's got her books and milk crates. She's sleeping with space heaters. She's in some crummy hallway that looks spooky. He was really feeling bad for me. And now I understood, like when I finally started gaining some money, which, you can't expect you're going to get in the arts. I always had a day job, but when I finally started making my money, my father gave me the opposite advice, because he would always complain, ojalá que se case la Sandra, pobrecito que la Sandra, cuando se va a casar. When they finally saw me get the big Loteria MacArthur check, and he asked to hold it. And he said, how many years would I have had to work to make this sum? He made me take a picture. He was so proud. Anytime I won a check, he made me take a picture of it. And he said to me, Sandra, no te vayas a casar, nomás te va a quitar tus centavitos. And I was like, hallelujah, the gods have heard me. My father finally enough to understand me. And for me, because it's mutual, understand him. And then I knew that divine providence was going to take my father away, because the universe gives you something and it takes something away. It gave me that moment. I had prayed selfishly that my father could live long enough to understand why I was living like the way I lived. And then 2 years later, he died. So I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. And it was just one of those things of the universe. The wonderful thing that I learned with my father's death that I want to throw out there for those of you who are on a spiritual path, we're all on different paths. I don't want to convince you, but I know what I know.
Please share with us.
My father loved me so intensely, and I cried so hard when he was dying, because we knew he was dying. He had a terminal illness. Right, and I put that moment of crying like a dog hit by a car in my book, Martita, I Remember You. I put it in there, that episode. And once he died, I could still feel his love. I could still send and receive his love. I could feel it, viscerally, I could meditate and then feel this little stingray of love. When you look at someone and it goes through your heart, you get a little I could feel it. And I thought, love never dies. Why didn't anyone tell me that? Then I wouldn't have wasted so much time crying, because he's still loving me, and I can still communicate with him when I meditate and when I create art. And when I'm creating is when I open that channel for my father. And he helped me. He taught me how to meditate, because I was stuck writing the most difficult book, Caramelo, about his life. And I just decided, well, I'm just going to make my father help me. And I would say, Papa, necesito ayuda. I have to write a page and a quarter. And it was like pushing a Buick with my forehead. I said, are you them at just this page and a quarter so I could get the machine, shut it off? It would take me like hours to get like a character to walk across the room. It was just hours. You know, and I'm going to honor you and not make you ashamed. I will make you proud. So what I did is like I learned that the way I can meditate, this is a cheat meditation for those of you who don't like meditating. I'm a cheat meditation.
I know you're making me cry.
I'm trying too. I said, think of someone when I teach meditation that loves you unconditionally. Some people don't have that. So I said, okay, think of some dog or tree or yourself. Some people don't love themselves, but think of someone who loves you unconditionally or something or mountain or sky that loves you unconditionally and put that on the moon. And I want you to imagine, especially it's powerful if you can think of a deceased spirit ally. Think of that smile and just take it in your in-breath and attach it to your heart on the in-breath. And when you exhale, send that smile all the way back to the moon at the speed of light. You take it in through your heart and you exhale and send it down. And just think of that smile, which is really love, like washing over your heart, taking all the penas you've had today, washing over your forehead, taking that moonlight, and you're just like calming yourself down, calming your breathing down. You can do this 5 times or 55 times or 155 times, whatever you like. You know, sometimes you're stray and you think, did I take the portraits out of the freezer? Okay, come back to that smile. Just guide it back to that smile. And you do this for however long you can maintain it. Tonight is a full moon. And
That's right. Maybe that's why between your stories and your insight, I'm literally I'm crying. I'm el mascara.
Follow my Instagram. I remind everyone that tonight at 10 o'clock Central Time, USA time, 9 p.m. Mexico City time, and wherever you are, you can join us to do a moon meditation with me. And some people say, how do I join? Where do I connect? Right here.
Oh, I love that. Well,
right here. And where do you join? Look up. You don't see it. It's there.
It's there. It's there.
You don't see it and you don't have access to sky, but I can guarantee you it is a full moon tonight. It's very powerful full moon. We can meditate for our own wounds, the wounds on the planet, the wars that are going on, peace, and it can help us to become better human beings so that we can work to be peace. And I want to recommend again, Thich Nhat Hanh's Being Peace, Changed My Life, and Pema Chodron, The Real Deal. You don't have to waste your time on the phonies. Just go to.
Okay, you heard it here, amigas. You heard Sandra's recommendations. Sandra, I'd love to ask you a little bit about, so on the topic, so we just talked about your dad and, you know, allowing ourselves to be open and connecting to ancestors, connecting to wisdom. Can we talk a little bit about your mother? So
difficult.
Yeah.
Our moms are difficult. And I don't know any Latino who has like a peaceful relationship with her, because I really think that when we take our contracts with life, that whoever is accepting to be our mother says, yeah, we want the most difficult daughter ever. And like the one that accept to be the daughter say, yeah, give me that. Yes, the most sumo wrestler mom. Because if, you know, she's difficult, imagine how difficult you are or were for her.
Right.
You know, forget about that. But she is your guru.
She's your guru. And your mom was your guru. I mean, you write about how your mother didn't, you write, the mother doesn't object. She knows what it is to live a life filled with regrets, and she doesn't want her daughter to live that life too. You wrote that in the introduction. Tell us how your mom impacted your writing. And so I just, you know, I want to hear it all.
My mom was a working class woman who never finished freshman year of high school. Like she was like totally like, you know, misspelled her whole life. But she read Noam Chomsky, she read Paulo Freire, she read Carlos Fuentes. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like she was totally autodidacta. That she picked up our textbooks, you know, she listened to Studs Terkel. And then she says, Sandra, there's some poet who wrote a poem about the miners in Chile. You know about it? I said, oh, you're talking about Pablo Neruda? Yeah, him. I heard his poem on Studs Terkel. Can you get the book? Okay, Ma. Yeah, you know, like, so she read all these great books. In the beginning, when we were kids, she read like, you know, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the Pearl Buck. But later on, she just like, she blossomed in. When you think of the United States and the unrest of the 60s and, everything inflamed, that was my mom's brain. She was reading all these great books as we got them, we passed them along. And she became the most articulate and well-read person in the barrio, except maybe to the Pentecostal minister, but he was versed in the Bible. My mom was versed in U.S. policy, and Vietnam War. She could tell you couldn't tell her nothing. And she would make our signs, like, when U.S. intervention. I love the signs she made. She made a whole bunch of signs because she was going to go march with us. I thought, how cool to have your mom march with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But when the day came, I was like, I'm too tired, Mija. You can go. Okay, Ma. And she had all these cool signs, but they were all misspelled. I was like, I can't tell me English major. I can't take these signs. But there was one that was really
details.
Good. Yeah, I know. I can't take misspelled signs, but there was one that was really good. It's Yankee Come Home. That's the one I held up and marched. U.S. out of El Salvador. Yankee Come Home. My mom would have those buttons. U.S. out of El Salvador. Feed the people, not the Pentagon. I have those pins and I put them on the day that I walked down the aisle with her coffin. I wore them because my brothers took them off of her body from the coffin, but that's another story. And I wore them and I put them on her altar that I created for Day of the Dead. Her pins are on her muñecas because she had a lot of dolls, and I put them all. Like, she was so, like, people at the Jewel grocery store would say, "U.S. out of El Salvador, what's that?" And they would say, "Oh, there's no intelligent life around here." My mom was brilliant. She belonged like in some master's PhD program in Berkeley. She was so with it. But she felt like stuck with a man who watched Sábado Gigante. That was his idea of fun. She was like brilliant. She wanted to go to the art museum. She wanted to go to the field museum. She took us out to the library every Saturday. She was starving for a personal creative life that her husband, nice guy, didn't give her. And she surpassed him and was very, can you imagine, imagine if you couldn't live your dream, how angry that would make you? Well, she was like a pit bull. So we all had to walk around her because she was so frustrated. Yeah. And that's what people are that are like bitchy like that. It's because they're holding so much pain that they haven't transformed. I tell young people, you need to transform your demons, or your demons will transform you. And that's where my mother was, but she didn't know it. You know those people.
Yeah, I know those people. I feel like I may have been that person at some point in my life. It's to hear you talk about this is a reminder, I think, for myself and for everyone who is trying to create their own life, that at the end of the day, all we have is what we create. All we have is what it's our dream. It's what we want to manifest. And I think that this conversation is really reminding me of why it's so important for us to be in community with one another, to pursue that which makes our heart sing, so that we can be light, so that we're not running around with all this
infecting everyone with our bitterness. Right?
Yeah, with all this toxicity.
Anger is contagious. Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why I love this book, and I'm reminded, and I was crying throughout it because I was reminded of how hard it can be when you're growing up and you don't really see your stories, and you don't know how to put words to the experiences that you're having, into the feelings that are que te nacen. And so I know we're almost at time, but one of the things that I would love for us to quickly chat about, I know there's some questions in the chat, but I would love to end this portion of our conversation so we can get into the Q&A by asking you, you talk about building a life despite fear. Mm-hmm. You talk about building, and the reader gets to walk alongside Esperanza as we see what she wants to build, as we see where her dreams are taking her. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to create this life for yourself despite the fear. You know, you talk about in the introduction, talking to Norma Alarcón and saying, hey, I have all of this because I did it, even though I was afraid, whether it was traveling abroad, whether it was writing, whether it was not getting married at a certain age, you know, all of these experiences that you did despite being afraid. And I just want to, you know, if you could just give us a couple of words around that, I would love to hear them.
One of the things in this issue, the Everyman edition, which my friend John Philip Santos wrote the new introduction, which is, you know, you've got to read it. But he's calling this the Every Mango edition, which I think is so charming. One of the
It's so beautiful.
It's pretty, right? But the thing that I like is they made me do a chronology of my life.
I saw that.
The writing exercise, try doing a chronology of your life. Like, what were the things that happened to you, including the exploding cigars, made Norma? Because I bet you any money, the exploding cigars are going to figure more important than the North Stars. And the exploding cigars are like, I don't know if I put them in here, but in my mind, you know, they're the things that happened that were traumatic. But guess what? I walked through it. And by walking through, I graduated. And sometimes people came into my life that I was trying to please, and then they vanished. But they took me to the next step that I would not have done alone. I was trying to get their approval. So I did things I was afraid, like traveling alone. I was involved with my nemesis at that time. He was very international. And to gain his approval, because I felt very provincial. I'd only been to Mexico, and I'd never been there alone, except, you know, that would come later. I was too afraid to even travel to Indiana alone, you know. So it was like, okay, I'm gonna get a one-way ticket. I'm gonna go to Patagonia. Oh, no, that's too far. Okay, I'll get a one-way ticket to Athens, you know, like a poca, how to do things to gain the approval of someone who sometimes we meet in our lives, people that are reflections of who we want to be. We want to be them. We fall in love with who we want to, not them, but the reflection of ourselves. And that person, like, we pass through them, and like we become them and go farther, and we leave them behind. And I felt like there was a lot of people in my life that I fell in love with, or that I admired, that gave me the courage to be something I wasn't, but I wanted to be them. And I thank divine providence, because I was bien inocente. I'm still an inocente. I'm one of those, like, you know, people see me on the outside as Chingona, but I see myself as Thumper from Bambi, from the cartoon version, you know. That's how I see myself. So you can imagine what trouble Thumper gets in when she's like, and has no idea she's in a female form. And man, I was a knockout. I had no idea. I was just like, you know, so I was tonta. I made a lot of mistakes. I did not know who I was. But now I'm feel chingona, and I like myself better. And it's thanks to all those mistakes. I wish that, you know, everyone listening, do a chronology of your life, especially the mistakes. And you will see, oh my God, I'm so glad that this person left me, or that I left this person, because look who I am now. I wouldn't have done this or this or this. And look, I like myself so much. Now I got a long way to go before I'm ready to catch my Uber out of this planet. But I want to thank all the exploding cigars for bringing me to who I am today. I couldn't have done it without you. So
oh, thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you for
before we go to Q&A, I just want to say, this is a book that's being translated to an opera, and it's going to premiere at the Glimmerglass Festival this August, thanks to libretto by moi, and the composer Derek Vermel is doing the music, and we're workshopping it this May and premiering the little debut without the orchestra, just singers and piano, at the August Glimmerglass Festival, Cooperstown, New York. And then like next year, we'll have the orchestra and costumes. So, you know, watch out.
So if you're in New York, get some tickets.
Hopefully it'll come to you by, you know,
yes.
with success.
Hopefully, I'll be waiting in LA. Sandra, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. There are a couple of questions. I really want to try and get to
Yes.
them. I know this
Yes.
is
And if you don't get to the questions today, you can write to me on my website. I answer those. You can follow me on Instagram and see if I'm coming to a community near you, because I have quite a schedule once the tour this October goes on.
All right. Okay. So, Vanessa Weber, if you are still here and would you like to unmute and quickly ask your question? Otherwise, I can ask it for you.
Sure, yes, I'm here.
Great. Thank you.
So it's kind of a longer question. What I wanted to know is when you find yourself reflecting on the impact of your work, particularly House on Mango Street, what do you believe has been its significance in shaping the literary landscape for Latino writers and readers? And how do you see your writing contributing to broader conversations about identity, representation, and belonging within literature?
That sounds like your term paper. Are you doing a term paper on those your questions?
I might after this.
I'm not an academic, so I'm going to try from the writer's point of view. If I remember, the first part of the question was how to affect others. I think it gave people, whether they're eighth graders or university students or adults, permission to tell their stories. Because I think for a lot of people, they did not see themselves on pages of American letters, and especially girls, and especially working class girls, and in a voice that is familiar to them. And a lot of people come to the book and are required to read it, especially people who don't like to read. And suddenly it transforms them into readers because it doesn't make them feel unintelligent. It seems simple. And, the stories are unintimidating. But more than anything, I'm using language that is everyday speech. That to me was essential when I wrote the book. So I think it makes readers run for their pens to tell their own stories. That's what I hear again and again. So I'm very happy that it's empowered people to find a voice, maybe not to publish it, but to the real reason why we need to write, which is to let things go from our hearts that we wish we could forget, so that it doesn't transform us, that we transform it, and it transforms us to be better human beings rather than transforming us to be angry and bitter or frustrated. So I think it's doing its spirit work in that hand. That was the first part of your question. Your part two, your question was, I forgot. Can you repeat that second part?
Sure. How do you personally see your writing sorry about that. How do you personally see your writing contributing to broader conversations about identity and belonging in literature?
Well, I don't know, because I have never had a permanent job beyond 2 semesters in the academy since, my years. I never could find a job. So I guess I could now if I wanted one, but I've been self-employed for so long, I don't need one. But, I invented a new way of making a living, thanks to, and here I must thank a very special person, Susan Bergholz, my agent, who came into my life months after I almost self-destructed when I was 30, right after that year of my near death. And she banged on those doors, took her shoe and banged it on the table. And she really launched a lot of us and opened and changed the color of New York publishing. So she made it possible for me to stay home and be a full-time writer, something I never visualized. So I don't know, because I'm not in the classroom. You have to tell me. You out there, I have no idea. I just come in, pop in, do a little, little show and off. I don't know. I am a woman who earns her living by her pen. Do you know how many few writers do that of any color? It's like Julia Alvarez told me it was like 1%, and we're Latina women, so I don't know how that happened. Well, maybe Susan Bergholz is the beginning of that story. Somebody needs to do a thesis on the work Susan Bergholz did in changing the publishing landscape.
Thank you, Sandra. And thank you, Vanessa, for your question. On the topic of students, I see that there's a question from a class. So Miss Henao, am I pronouncing your last name? If you are still here and you'd like to ask your question, otherwise I'll ask it Why don't I go ahead and ask it for the sake of time? So,
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
oh, great.
Well, I have my class with me as well. So it is Miss Hanau. I'm sorry. So I'm with my sisters, and we read 11, and I'm trying to find my question. So I think they were like they really felt and with that story. So I think the was I'm sorry.
Well, while you're looking for your
How are
question,
you able to
I'm sorry. While you're looking for your question, I just want to add that a new
Yes.
book that's going to be published next year or the year after, I don't know when, we have to sign the contract, is going to be a little gift book with the story 11. So you'll be able to look forward to the story 11 being its own little gift book. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Oh, thank you. So how are you able to sort of grasp a young character's voice in that way? Like, what place do you go
All right.
when writing these young characters?
The thing is, I recommend that everyone tell stories that you're not able to tell for the reason of just cleansing and healing. So that story 11 was written when I was between work. I didn't have any money. It was like, I think I wrote it right before I published House. There was a gap, 2 gap years. I finished the book at 28 and it got published at 30. And during that time, I was working as a nanny for my brother's child. I didn't really have any money. So no, it had to be after that because a publishing house approached me from Boston and they said, House on Mango Street is written from a child's viewpoint, but it's not for children. Can you write a children's story? I said, yes, because I saw the magic word payment. I can do it. So I just shut myself in the room when my brother and his wife were home with the baby and I could be alone. And I made a big pot of coffee. And then I thought, what is the story that I've never told, that I'm too ashamed to tell? And that's key. Make a list of the 10 things you are too ashamed to talk about. Make a list of the 10 things you wish you could forget and write from that place. So one of the stories that had been festering in my heart since I was 9, not 11, was something that happened to me in 3rd grade at the age of 9. And I wrote 11 based on the little girl, me, 9. I moved it up to 11 so that she'd be more articulate. I made it her birthday, when in real life it wasn't. So it could be worse. And I used all 5 senses because that's how you make a character alive to the reader. And I changed the evil nemesis, the Mrs. Price. She was actually a nun, but we have enough unhappy nun stories. Those pobrecita nuns, they're just festering in unhappiness. So I get it now that I'm an adult, but I didn't want to contribute any more violence against nuns. So I made it just a lay teacher. And that's how I wrote it. But I have to tell you that in real life, I'm 69 on the outside, but inside, I'm 11 years old. Remember Thumper? 11 inside. We all have years that, 11, 12, 13 on top, all the way to 69, but inside I'm just lodged at 11. So it's really easy for me to remember that voice because I have conserved my inner child.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sandra. And thank you so much for that question, Ms. Hanau. Thank you for bringing your students to this conversation. What a joy. And with that, amigas, we are at time. I do not want to take, Sandra, I don't.
Please invite all your listeners here and to ask me more questions through my webpage, sandracisneros.com. There's a place at the end and you can follow me on Instagram as well, but please ask the questions on the web because I don't manage the Instagram. I manage the web.
Okay, so amigas, you've heard this. If we didn't get to your question today, please reach out to Sandra. As you've seen, she is so generous of spirit and of heart and has so much wisdom and so many beautiful stories to share. So please feel free. Sandra, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for sharing space, for sharing your thoughts, and for all the work that you have done and that you will continue to do. We are so honored and privileged to have shared this time with you in the Amigahood. Before we leave, I'd also like to thank Gabi for all of the work that she's done behind the scenes to make this conversation happen, to your publisher, to Penguin, to Sierra, to Anna, to everyone who made this, that made today possible. Amigas, if you enjoyed this conversation, please go out and support Sandra. You can pick up any of her books. But in particular, this, the 40th anniversary of House on Mango Street is so huge. Please support her. There'll be links in the chat where you can go ahead and buy the book if you don't already have it. Buy it for a friend. Buy it for your library. Buy it for your local library.
For Christmas, it's fat-free. It's a very good Christmas present.
It's a great Christmas present. Thank you so much. We know that it is special for you to be here, and we appreciate you being here. So thank you again. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Sandra, mil gracias por esta belleza. Gracias. Amigas, don't miss next month. We will be in conversation again, and we can't wait to see you. Have a beautiful day.